The meeting, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone could join us, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. All right. Okay, our next order of business is public comments. Public comments this evening. So come up front and tell us your name if anyone has them.
I answered my own question. Did I answer my own question?
Okay.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you for having us. I'm Danielle Pimenta. I'm Jennifer O'Leary. I'm here on
What's your last name, Jennifer?
O'Leary.
O'Leary. Okay. Thank you.
I'm here on behalf of parents and taxpayers of the town of Maynard. I'm going to read this letter that was composed by several parents and residents. We'd like to convey our greatest concern regarding the current state of our school district. As financial stewards and elected officials, we ask for your assistance. Below in this letter, you'll find some of the many legal violations that have taken place in the Maynard public schools. Some of these violations have already resulted in significant legal spending, and others can be filed at any time. We have tried multiple times for over a year to engage the administration and the school committee to help solve these systemic issues. Unfortunately, our concerns and attempts have not been met favorably and problems persist. We understand that the Board of Selectmen, your power lies in the budget, but we believe that this board can, in practice, exert influence over school decisions that leave the town open for legal actions. We therefore respectfully ask for your intervention. So here are just some of the violations we're referring to. Public meeting laws. School committee, subcommittee meetings, or minutes are not posted publicly, which excludes parents and residents from participating or being informed. Documentation presented as part of the record at school committee meetings are not available for public access together with the meeting minutes. The current school committee bylaws on citizens' comments and the behavior of school committee members during meetings violate citizens' constitutional rights. The school committee has not been reviewing executive session minutes and evaluating them for release. Another law, Freedom of Information Act. The student records requests are often incomplete. The mandated policy to exclude students' names in internal emails implemented this school year further prevents parents' access to the children's records. The superintendent, during a school committee meeting, refused to provide a copy of the Spanish Immersion Program review conducted by MABE. Here's another one. Individuals with Disabilities Education Act and Americans with Disability Act. Pathways are not properly cleaned from snow and ice, severely limiting access to the buildings by people with mobility-related abilities. The school's crisis plan, ALICE, does not provide appropriate plans to ensure the safety of students with mobility difficulties. The increase in state and federal complaints against the school for non-compliance to IEPs have cost the town thousands of dollars in legal fees. These violations continue as the administration continues to fail to ensure compliance. Currently, we've been working really hard on this one and we have gotten nowhere. The preschool sub-separate classroom at Green Meadow does not reduce noise and visual distractions, preventing students from accessing their curriculum, violating the right to a free and appropriate public education. Bullying laws, which is state laws, bullying continues to be a persistent problem in our schools. Some victims have had to leave the schools because the school administration could not keep them safe. In some cases, the school's inability to protect students has resulted in violation of free and appropriate public education rights of students. Meaningful access to education and English language learners, which is Title IX of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Equal Education Opportunities Act of 1974, Dr. Girardi was made aware of this federal requirement on September 1st, 2018 by a parent, and I'll name it, it was me. Communication from administration, faculty, and school committee are still not properly translated for parents of English learners, which keeps them from being able to make decisions for their children. All the asbestos communication mode, they had not been translated for parents, including ESL parents who had kids in kindergarten. I would like to provide this to be entered into the records, and again, we respectfully ask that you use the power that you have to help families and help children in the school system. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So, yeah,
We
if
have
you
a
give
copy of that?
If you give it to Becky,
Yeah.
Becky will get it into the record, and as so like you and I spoke about this, so everybody's aware, I spoke with Danielle about this and asked her to make her statement in front of all of us as a group, because she had sent me the letter individually, so I asked her to come make this presentation to us, and suggested that we will put it in our record, and that we will forward it to the school committee and Dr. Girardi, and that, that will provide us all with a, understanding that they did get the email, and nobody can say they didn't get it, because it will have come from us, and it will go through the town email system, and we'll have records. So we have that. And then, as far as, another thing, one of the things that we're struggling with as a administration and as a selectman is that by town charter and by state law, we have no control over the buildings, the curriculums, and others. There's other things that we talked about. So we'll exert the pressure that we can this way, and we'll keep going forward and let you know what happens, and you guys will probably let us know. But we appreciate you coming in to talk to us.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate your listening to us.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. So, can you, we'll put a copy of that in the packet for each of us for next week, so we have it, and then we'll send it, copy the 5 of us, and we'll send it to the school committee and Dr. Girardi with Greg as well.
Thank you.
Anybody else? How you doing?
Lauren Bell, 8 Brook Street in Maynard. Thank you for letting me speak. I will try to be a fast talker and squeeze it into 2 minutes. I'm here to address the translation services piece of the issues that Danielle raised. And on that front, I'm here in support of fellow Maynardians. This is nothing political. It's not an issue of moving mountains for a small minority. It's just about doing the right thing for our neighbors and their kids. I can't imagine moving to a community where the majority around me speaks another language, and despite my best efforts, the town and school communications coming my way weren't readable. And that's the situation that we do have now. I know the town and school officials are aiming to meet the DESE and state minimum guidelines and deem Google Translate sufficient to meet those minimums. But the people, your neighbors, their kids, say that they can't read these translations. And if it's about doing the right thing for our neighbors, the aim shouldn't be to meet the minimum and check a box. The ability of these folks to understand the communication should be the standard. And in my eyes, all town communications, not just legal documents, should be translated to meet the needs of our neighbors and kids. Speaking with Portuguese and Spanish speakers in town, mostly through Danielle, here's just kind of a sampling of what we're hearing regarding predominantly the MPS's website, but that's because that's where the questions were asked. But the town website faces the same issues because the town website uses Google Translate as its technological plugin at the bottom of the page. So it's all part of the same issue. And these aren't meant as complaints. It's only a punch list of things that we can actually pretty easily resolve. And just being here is starting that process, raising awareness of these issues so that we can start in on it. The town website, as you know, uses Google Translate, and those translations are often unintelligible. We wouldn't know it because I don't speak Portuguese, but those Portuguese speakers in town, our neighbors, do, and they know it. The MPS translation plugin, it's a different plugin. It's not Google Translate, but it also is into broken language that's often unintelligible. And that's the case with a lot of these translation plugins. They just haven't caught up with the human ear and the cultural context. And we can work through it. Maybe using the plugin and just having a human translator to edit once a month. That's cheaper than hiring a full-time translator for everything on the website. and it would actually be pretty effective. To translate to Portuguese or Spanish on the school website, you have to be able to know that the EN in the upper corner is the translation button. It's not intuitive. A lot of plugins have, you know, either the flag or the language name, so that's an easy fix. It's switching to a different plugin as part of this process. Once translated, the menu options on the MPS, again, I know that this is not your purview, it's just raising awareness of the issue. Once translated, the menu options on the MPS website are still in English. So you can't navigate the pages unless you know English, which is kind of self-defeating. The athletics registration form is not translated, making it difficult for ELL parents to sign their kids up for sports. They often make do because they find people in town who might be able to translate for them, but it's a challenge. The recent message about the asbestos that use Google Translate says that they'll turn off the wing instead of shut down the kindergarten wing, which to us doesn't seem to be a big difference, but for a parent who's never heard about asbestos before, it's difficult to understand exactly what the message is saying. You need that human translator's eye. The MPS staff page doesn't have any of their titles listed, so if you wanted to find the appropriate person and you didn't speak English, it's pretty challenging. And where the content on the page is translated and intelligible, and there's a link, you often click the link and the documents open in English. This and the town website's translation issues, and like the documents out there on the board there that are all in English, they're actually a pretty simple punch list, and that's what this is meant to be. It's completely achievable for short money and effort if we can get everybody to the table to get it done. And so, I think about this where things reversed, right? If all town communications in English were suddenly rendered gibberish by some technical snafu, and the majority, the English speakers in town, couldn't understand both casual and important messages on our town's websites, school communications, that sort of thing, you can bet it would be made right and made right fast. It's such a vital need, the cost would be deemed a necessary expense to ensure the safety and basic needs of our residents. So I ask myself, and I ask all of the town officials to ask themselves the same thing, why would this be any different for our non-native English speaker neighbors and friends? Why would ELL parents' concerns not be addressed immediately and as thoroughly? It's not a time to counter these concerns by saying we're meeting the minimum standards. It's just time to listen to our neighbors and do what's right for every resident of Maynard and get it done. I met with Greg this morning to discuss this, and I look forward to working with him and our board and the school officials, Danielle, and other ELL neighbors to make sure we get this right as a town. This is kind of that same line that every time I come up here, it seems to come down to this. To not do this sends an unflattering message to folks who might otherwise move to town. And I'm not just talking about non-English speakers, but all young families. And at a time when so much has gone wrong with the recent school asbestos and mold debacle and damaged our towns and our schools' reputation, this is one we can easily get right and actually boast about. We can thump our chests about it. So I'm happy to help in any way I can, starting with setting a meeting of the stakeholders together with Danielle, those stakeholders listed above, and come up with some of these achievable solutions. And thank you again.
Chris, if I may, Lauren, I'm going to use you as an expert because you're basically an expert in communications in my eyes. So are you aware of what other communities might do that Maynard is not doing relative to having access to multiple people being able to read things in different languages?
No, but obviously the towns around us that have, and most of them don't, but if we're talking about Marlborough, Framingham, and then you go east into Somerville and Cambridge, the towns that have large non-native English speaker populations, this is kind of a no-brainer for them because such large segments of the population are in the dark if they don't have adequate translation services. But that's part of this process, right? If we bring the stakeholders to the table, if the people that are advocating for it, Danielle, me, but the people who are having trouble with it, if we do the research and we find, all right, look, this is what Cambridge is doing, this is what here's the plugin that they use and it's brilliant, or here's the part-time translator that they use and they're good, they do it for short money. It's just a matter of everybody is so busy, and we all get that. I'm just hoping that we can elevate this to that level where it's as if you and I can't understand anything on that board out there, because that's what it is for them, and they live next to us. They are us. So, but yeah, that's part of that research process that I'm happy to be part of.
And thank you for the good. Oh, just one second. Yeah, go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Answer that question. I work in a city nearby that has a lot of ELLs, multiple languages. One of the most important things that they've done as a school system was to train everyone to understand the law. When do you have to translate? When you don't need to translate? And then they also put out information encouraging people who are bilingual to participate in translating. So they verified the proficiency through assessments to make sure that they were proficient in the language that they were going to translate for. And in that way, the town can actually, or the city now, can actually translate documents that should be translated in a much faster pace and for actually less money than hiring an outside firm.
So you don't need certified translators. Anyone who's proficient can do it. Do you think it's something that high school students who are bilingual or trilingual could handle as for like extra credit or something?
So it depends on what you're looking for them to translate. If it's just, so let me put it that way. First, you need to assess their proficiency level. And if they are bilingual, truly bilingual, fully proficient, then you have to still have an adult, a school official who can read that and make sure that it's okay before you send it out, because they are students and there is liability there.
And presumably some of these communications that can be translated include personal information. Is that true? For example, if the school wants to send something to somebody who's a non-English speaker, do they send it in their native language about their child, or do they send it in English?
When students register in Massachusetts, they have to fill out paperwork that asks what their primary language is at home. And if they check a box and list that language, then school communication must be set in that language.
Do you know if Maynard consistently does that? Yes, or
It does not do that.
they do not?
So they send everything in English?
Yes, in English. Teachers, to be quite honest, the classroom teachers have been trying really hard, and
they're
been
doing it on their
using
own?
Google Translate.
Yeah.
Legal documents like IEPs, the school has told me that they send it out to firms to be translated, but anything that the school sends out to English-speaking parents must be translated. And it means meaningful access. They have to be able to understand what is translated. So no, it's not translated like the law is asking them to translate. And we have 80 students who are ELL right now in Maynard.
And what's the language that's mostly spoken by these?
Spanish and Portuguese, which also means that we have a lot of people in our community who are proficient Spanish and Portuguese speakers, who we could possibly assess their proficiency and see if they have any interest in helping.
Just as an aside, I did reach out to a cooperative translation service based in Worcester. It's a co-op. They provide these services, and they train folks. So they live, they're based in Worcester. They don't want to be driving out to all these communities. They do now drive out. They're a startup, but they drive into Boston to do this. But they are now currently training folks who are local, who are native Spanish and Portuguese speakers, to become professional translators. So their process would be to grab a few people in our community who want to do this and want to make a little bit of side money, train them, and then the money's staying local. It's short money, especially if we can do it in combination with the technology that already exists, and it's just an editing of things that are already there when it comes to the website. It's one of many options. So that's the kind of research that I think if we get the brains to the table, the people, I mean, it's the people. It's not asking you guys to do it. It's not asking the school community to do it. It's just asking them to come to the table and put our heads together and knock that punch.
Can you educate me on one more thing, too? You talked about how the school, and I'm not trying to make this a school town thing, but that the school website translates in a different fashion than the town website.
Yeah, the school website uses a different plugin.
Okay, but is that, and I guess this might be an administrative question, is that a cost generator in any way? Or is it just a choice of what we used to,
We use Google Translate because that was what was established. I don't know if there's a cost. I don't think there is, but I'll find out.
the only reason I raised that is it took us, my first 7 years on this board, the schools had a different platform for our budgeting. So we couldn't talk to one another. The town couldn't talk to the school because they didn't want to change their system to talk to us. It's eventually evolved. I don't know if we're fully there, but we're a lot closer than we were 10 years ago. And this seems like another one of those things. I don't understand why we can't be on the same platform. But I'm not a techie guy. There might be.
I'm not either, but I hear you. And actually, they are on two different platforms. One is on WordPress and one is on something else.
Yeah.
And so the options that you have for plugins for WordPress, I mean, Google Translate is essentially free unless you pay for premiums. And so the options that you have in terms of the technology you can plug in depends on the platform that you're using. But again, that's the kind of thing where like the tech person for both the school and town come to the table.
And somewhere there might be a cost savings in this thing that we should be doing anyway.
You may be able to streamline things and actually get a better result.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the aim.
So the one question I have is, just so I understand it as well. So quickly, I went on Marlboro, Lawrence, Framingham, and Hudson, and they all have the Google Translate at the top of or bottom of their website. So does that mean that is what they're using, or are they also translating things as well? So I guess that's what I'm looking for clarification on.
I guarantee that one of those is translated well. I work for one of those,
You work for Framingham.
and it's translated properly.
Yep. Okay. So, and how would they know that, or how would anybody know that?
Because they have translators who look at all this stuff.
Right. Okay. All right.
Yeah, and some of these systems, whether it's the school system or the town systems, they,
Yeah.
if you're Framingham and you have all of that commercial tax income, you can pay for a town advocate for folks who don't speak English, and that resolves a lot of the issues. That's not in our wheelhouse right now. I don't think it's something we're even worth looking at right now, but at least if we can sort of supplement what's existing with the human eye as well, I think we can fill a lot of the gaps that are existing and really improve our services to our neighbors.
Thank you. Sorry.
Okay,
Thank you all.
thank you. Does anybody else have any public comments they'd like to make this evening? No? Okay. Thank you. All right, on to item number 3, acceptance of minutes. First set of the regular minutes of March 5th. I make a motion that we move to accept and approve the meeting minutes of March 5th, 2019 as shown. Have a second.
Second.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about the minutes of the March 5th meeting? All those approved.
I'm going to abstain because I left pretty early in the meeting, so.
Okay. Oh, yes. Okay. We also have executive session minutes for the meeting from March 5th. And I make a motion that we approve the executive minutes from March 5th, 2019, but do not release to the public yet. Do a second.
Second.
Is that you?
That was me.
Okay. So far away, I didn't know. Okay, any questions about the executive session minutes of the 5th?
Chris, we just have, sorry, typo we'd like to correct, is just a small typo, okay, that's okay.
Okay,
In the executive session ones?
Yes.
Wasn't it only one sentence?
I think there was like a solid 4.
Let's see if we can find it.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
So I would recommend, Mr. Chairman, if we postpone voting on this, because it's a quick fix, but because it's related to the executive session that we just had this evening, which we could just do both
Okay.
sessions at the same time, and then potentially release them as well.
okay, I'll withdraw the motion to approve the executive session minutes of March 5th.
I think I see it. Wrong title. Yeah.
Yeah, way late.
Oh,
blended shirt.
I'll take it on that one. That was me. Sorry. It felt like that.
Oh, she didn't want to be there. We've got 6 of those already. Good thing Bill can't see what we're looking at. Okay, so we're on to the correspondence items for this week. This week we have,
Whole lot.
so we have correspondence items A through H, and I make a motion that we move to accept and approve correspondences A through H as shown. For a second.
I will second it.
Thank you. Any conversation on A through H? So why, just a comment on the last one, H, which is the Cannabis Control Commission, Wellspring on Powder Mill Road. That's, have they reopened? Someone told me they were gonna reopen.
Yeah.
I heard they reopened
The matter,
last
yes.
week.
They had their
Last week,
They
yeah.
had their open sign up last week. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Bill knows.
are they coming back?
Bill's here.
Oh, here's, so.
Going in front of
Town Planner
planning
Bill
board,
has it.
right?
Aren't they,
Wellspring?
are they rescheduled for to go in front of the planning board?
That's correct. Next Tuesday, Mass Wellspring is week from tonight from the planning board. They've
26th.
been reopened at their Acton facility.
Yeah,
And
so
I spoke with them today.
is the chief involved in that?
The chief has been involved with it, and he's going to be attending the planning board meeting as well.
What night is it?
The
Next
26th.
Tuesday.
Next Tuesday?
Yeah.
A busy week next
Bill,
week.
if I may, there was one resident in particular that was extremely interested in that particular topic. She was here for a couple of our meetings, and I typically wouldn't ask if we reach out to residents to tell them, hey, this is coming on the agenda, but I think in this instance, given her level of interest, do you have her name?
Yes.
If we could reach out to her to let her know that this is coming up, she'll then spread it out to her group of followers, I'm sure, and then, at least then, everybody's aware. Because this is sort of coming on pretty quick, and there hasn't been any announcement publicly, from what I'm aware of, that this is going to be heard next Tuesday, and we're a week away, so,
All done, it's done.
yeah,
And
thank
I
you.
think there's a number, 3 or 4.
Yeah, okay, great, thank you.
To clarify, Selectman Gavin, when they asked, because they were already scheduled to go to the planning board, they had to ask for a continuance
Right.
of that date. And at that time, they did ask.
Oh, they did, okay, they gave that specific date?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
Yes, and I've been in contact with anybody who's interested.
Okay,
So
good,
technically, this is their second time coming to the planning board.
yeah,
Right.
okay.
Thanks, Bill. Okay, anybody else have any other questions on A through H?
Nope.
No?
No.
All those in favor? Okay, thank you. One consent agenda item this week. And it is for a one-day special permit for rain barrel distribution. And the motion reads, make a motion to accept and approve the one item in the consent agenda A as presented. Do a second.
Second?
Okay, what is this, Greg?
It's the rain barrel distribution by the community gardeners.
I didn't know they were
Those
selling
cost
rain
money?
barrels.
They do.
I suspect they're not free, so.
About $75.
Do we have anyone from the community garden? No.
And
Okay, so I don't
how
know.
many barrels are we talking about
I
anyway?
don't know that either. They're just requesting to use that space on the parking lot,
Okay.
so I don't know the details.
So they bring their own barrels or we supply the barrels?
No, well,
No,
they,
you-
they sell.
You
Oh,
come
we sell
you
them.
come get one and bring it home if you wanna collect
Oh,
water
okay,
for your
okay.
plants and
They
stuff.
Oh, you're selling the barrels?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
you're right, but again, the town,
Oh,
we're,
with the water.
we're only asking that the selectmen allow the use of public space, which is that back area of the parking lot. As to the details of the sale, I'm not sure.
It looks like further down in the email that she corresponded with Aaron, and they are working with a rain barrel company. So they wanted to get permission ahead of time to know that they could use our spot as a distribution place. That's what it looks like.
Got it.
But I don't have the cost, unfortunately.
All right.
I'm sure we could find that out.
Okay. All those in favor of the rain barrels? Thank you. Next item is discussion of the contract for the potential new Assistant Town Administrator. And the motion is to approve the Assistant Town Administrator contract, which would become effective April 8th, 2019, and shall be in full force and effect until April 8th, 2022. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, discussion?
So-
Megan, do we need Megan for this?
Well, this is for the approval of the
Okay,
contract.
yeah,
You
sorry.
might want to have her for the appointment. but
We might.
If you ask her to come to the front, you can ask.
She can come to the front.
Yeah. So again, this is Megan Zamudo, who is my candidate for Assistant Town Administrator. And through negotiations, I'm providing the board with my recommendation to approve the contract for her position.
Okay. So,
Was already seconded.
yeah, we're seconded by David.
Mhm.
Does anybody have any questions or comments about the contract before we vote, one way or the other? Sign. Okay, so all those in favor of the contract as presented? Okay, thank you. This other signed copy. So this one's done, those ones are not. Okay, the next item is that I make a motion to approve and appoint the Assistant Town Administrator per the terms of the contract that expires on April 8th, 2022. Do I have a second?
Second? All of us second.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions, comments?
Welcome on board.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you so
Welcome.
much.
Yes,
Thank us-
congratulations.
Thank us
Thank
now.
you.
Thank us now, we have a
Appreciate
chance. Well, you care to. But, again, I think it's, we appreciate all the prior commitments to the town you've made, and so far as your commitments to the planning board and other things, so, we're sorry to see you move on from those things, but we're excited to see you coming into this new position, so
What date?
we appreciate your interest.
Doesn't sound good.
Great.
Would anybody else have any comments? Do you have any comments?
I'm just thrilled to get started. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Great,
All right,
thank
all
you.
those in favor? Thank you. So we'll sign this, and then I think tomorrow, or whenever, see Greg, you sign it, and then you have to be sworn in by the town clerk, so.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Thanks very
Congratulations.
Yeah, that's your seat right next to Becky,
All right, great.
going forward. Thank you.
I'll sit over here for now.
Okay, yeah, you can stay over there, wherever you
She's
want.
gonna enjoy in the back while she can.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're gonna approve a transfer of a liquor license, perhaps.
I don't see them here, but
They're not here?
I don't know, are they here? Do they need to be here?
She's actually in a meeting over at online right now.
Oh,
She wasn't gonna, I don't think she was gonna be here.
okay.
She came in to take us.
Is this just
That's what
just
matters.
wrapping up what we did last week in the public
Yeah.
hearing?
Yes.
Yeah,
Just kind of finalizing that process?
Yes, you approved the
Yes.
application, now it's the actual license.
Okay. All right, so the first one is, we'll make a motion to accept and approve the liquor license transfer from Online Wine and Liquor, Inc. to Ancricor LLC, DBA Online Wine and Liquor, with manager Anush Yasayan. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any conversation, any discussion about the approval of the transfer?
welcome to Maynard.
Okay, yeah. All those in favor? I guess for anybody that's interested, so you know what we're doing, we had a public hearing at our last meeting at which the new owners of the liquor store on Powder Mill Road came in and spoke to us about a transfer of the license, and this is just, the state has come and sent them the licenses, the actual licenses, and that's what we're approving today. that all the background work and the public hearing have been held. And then we have there's no action on the other one, right? So, okay. Okay, so we're on to number 8, which is interview candidates for an open board, and the interview and appoint an alternate as full-time member to the planning board, and a action as a motion to accept and approve the change from alternate to full member of planning board with support for Christopher Arsenault, term ending June 30th, 2020. Do we have a second?
Second. Oh, whatever. Third.
Whoever.
Tie. All right. That's Melissa, you pick whichever one you heard.
I heard David first, but.
He didn't say anything.
Oh, sorry, sorry.
Carmen, but,
It came from that way.
all right.
Strike 2.
Well, guys, we all look alike, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, Bill. Is this for you?
No,
No, Chris is here.
Well,
Oh,
Chris,
Chris is
but
here, all right.
it's planning is.
Yeah, so it's Bill's committee.
Oh, Bill's, yeah, that's right.
All right, Chris. Does anybody have any questions for Chris, other than the ones we might have asked him when he became the alternate?
Yeah. Well, actually, I've seen him in action a couple of times, and
So now do you have
you know,
questions?
no. He's a great addition. Brings
All
a
right,
lot. Brings a lot to.
This ends June 30th, 2020, Bill? Term? Yeah, that's what it says.
That's what it's,
Okay.
You'd fill out,
he'd be filling the balance of Megan's term.
Okay, so
which
this,
is 2020, okay.
2020.
so now he's sworn as an alternate. Does he have to become sworn as a regular member as well? Go back to that process again?
Yeah.
Okay, so, all right, so I think we all have, we spoke before you became an alternate, so I'm sure the information's the same. Does anybody else have any other questions? All right, all those in favor of approval? Thank you, and thank you for
you.
volunteering your time.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks very much.
We do appreciate it. Okay, next appointment, we have an appointment for the Cultural Council. And it's a motion to accept and approve Greg Bocus. Pronounce that right?
Yes. you
Okay.
did.
Greg Bocus to the Cultural Council with a term of June 30th, 2021. And, okay, so do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Good evening.
Hello.
So does anybody have questions for Greg?
Did we ever get a resignation letter from Elliot?
you just approved, I think, in your,
Yeah,
Oh,
it was in the
Okay.
packet, yeah. Yeah.
Greg, tell us a little bit about your interest in the Cultural Council.
I think it's a really nice way to balance kind of giving back to your community as well as balancing some of my own interests. I play in a band. I also have some interests in photography as well as film. So it's a really nice way to kind of work those into my daily life.
Have you gone to any of the meetings yet? Have you?
Oh, I've been kind of a regular
Regular.
attendee for probably about 6 months now.
That's how
so-
they get you.
Yeah, I know. I figured that out.
Try you in. Okay. Anyone else? Any other questions?
Don't.
Okay.
Thank you for volunteering.
No, thank you for the opportunity.
We appreciate it.
All right, all those in favor? Thank you, and thank you for volunteering as well.
Thank you.
Good luck, Greg.
Now he's gonna hang around for the name change.
Yeah, you can hang on for the name change if you'd like. Potential name change, okay?
Yes.
I think it was just a discussion about the name change. I don't think there's any motion that goes with it, but, so we took, I guess, a long, long time and a lot of work to get us to today, which is that we are called the Assabet Village Cultural District. Why are we gonna change to the Maynard Arts District? I mean, away from cultural and just to the one word arts.
So we'll still be a cultural district, but we had a few reasons that we wanted that change. First of all, Assabet Village Cultural District. It's a long name. It's a cumbersome name. Maynard Arts District is a lot short. It's easier to remember. I've had people come up to me, call it the Assabet Valley Cultural District, the Assabet River Cultural District, and other variations on that theme. And then Assabet is not a word that is known to people outside of this town or immediate region. So if you want to draw in people from a wider swath of the Massachusetts area, having it named Maynard, people know about the town of Maynard before they're going to know about the town of Assabet. So having Maynard and Maynard Arts District is a lot more clear and will drive people right to where it is, as opposed to Assabet Village. People who live outside of town or more than a town away don't know where or what the Assabet Village is. They don't know that it's concurrent with the town. And then the word village itself denotes a more rural agricultural community that might be more indicative of the surrounding towns. Maynard Arts District is busier, a more happening, a more active. It's more of a town rather than a village feel to it, and that's another thing. So I think that's a more accurate reflection of the status of our downtown and what we want the downtown to become. And then the other reason is there is a timing part to it as well, where we've received funding from the Massachusetts Cultural Council to design a new logo for the cultural district. Normally a name change would come every 5 years, but we were able to argue that it doesn't make sense for us to design a logo now and then in 2 years have to rebrand it again with a name change. And so they approved the name change right now, and they like that name change. All they wanted was the approval of the town administrator, and he wanted the approval of everybody here. But we've also brought it to the head of the EDC, the head of the MBA, people in town doing various branding discussions, and we've received only positive feedback on it so far. And then the other good news is we will be designing a new logo to go along with your approval, the name change. And we hope to unveil it soon. If you do approve, we could be ready as soon as the award show, which we're going to be holding on the 29th of March, which you've all been invited to, and I hope you'll all be able to join us then. I think that'll be quite exciting. So if we're unable to put it together that quickly and get the logo ready for that event, then we'll hope to do it relatively shortly by mid-April.
Okay. Jeff, quick question.
Sure.
What do we do about that sign
Right, yeah.
that went up?
So the one on Acton Street coming into town, so that...
There's a history to that sign that angers me separately, but...
Well, separate from that...
not that the sign doesn't look good or whatever. That's not
that's not the sign that was
it's not the sign that was
supposed
that was
to
negotiated.
Well,
with
this might be a
developer.
good opportunity to change that sign. And I believe that sign was designed so that it could be changed out relatively cheaply without taking down the whole structure. So that, to me, is another, that shouldn't be a major thing. We can get a new sign with the correct name or whatever we want on that sign. And we also have, separate from the logo, some funding from the state for signage and banners that could possibly be used towards that.
Okay, so I don't have any problem with what you went through as far as Assabet and Village and all that. I get that in a change to Maynard. I never understood why we put it in under the Assabet Village in the first place as we were going through the process. So I get that. I'm in favor of that. But I guess when you take the word cultural, because it was always always cultural. Now we're going to take that word out and put in the word arts. Does the word cultural or the word arts leave anybody in any particular group behind by changing it from one to the other, or vice versa?
Or could you combine the two?
Because we did so much work to establish ourselves as a cultural council, and I think that in the cultural piece, there's some people that are not necessarily part of the arts. So do we leave restaurants behind? Do we leave other people in town that aren't connected to arts? Because when people come into town, I think of arts, the first thing that most think, and a lot of things that only people think about, is art space, which is a great thing that we have in town. But I'm just a little worried that if we change it away from cultural to strictly an arts thing, that are we leaving people behind? They shouldn't be left behind.
So first of all, the actions that the cultural district and the cultural council will take will in no way leave those people behind. They're absolutely a focus and a priority. Second of all, we will still be a state designated cultural district regardless of what the name is. So around the state there are a number of cultural districts. most of them do not have the word cultural district in there. They are several other that are arts districts. Some may be a theater district. There are literary district. I believe the Natick is an arts, I forget what they are off the top of my head, but so having the name cultural district is one option that some do and some do not. And then lastly, we did discuss that, I think, between the considerations for the new name, Maynard Arts District. Second was Maynard Cultural District. I think the word arts was particularly playing to the point that distinguishing ourselves among the cultural district, that we are attracting an artistic community here built on art space and a large number of other artists who are active in town outside of art space. And so to not just be a general cultural district, of which there are many, but specifically to put in an arts district was part of that conversation. The word arts is a bit more quick and dynamic. However, cultural district was also considered. So as far as we intend functionally, that no, we don't intend to leave the restaurants or other elements of that behind, but we like the snap of the Maynard Arts District. So that, as far as the name, was more of a preference.
I like the acronym.
And there's the acronym MAD. So, yeah, the Beverly Arts District has used Be Bad in some of their branding and advertising, so we leave that open too. That is a good point, Armand.
Now, I know I had spoken to a few people a long time ago about the cultural district in general, and that there were people that I talked to that were very proud of the whole Assabet Village part of that. Mm-hmm. So that's my only concern. I mean, you said that you've talked to the members of, the cultural councils and the EDC and the MBA and everybody else, and everybody pretty much agrees, because we don't want to make this decision moving forward and again, kind of like what Chris said, is leave people behind who were really proud of this part of it. So we're definitely want to be aware of that.
I am aware of that. I haven't officially reached out to, say, the town historical committee, but I've talked to members on it who are like the change as well. If you would like a more formal reach out to some of those groups, we could do that. But I think even given that, if we're going to make this town a draw for people outside of the immediate area, you don't want to try to brand both Maynard and Assabet Village at the same time, because you're just going to split their attention in a lot of ways. So I don't think that changing from the Maynard Arts District gives up or is in any way disrespectful to that history. I think everybody in town knows and is proud of that history, and I think you can be the Maynard Arts District and still maintain that.
Another point, Mr. Chairman, is which I do agree. I would not want to not be inclusive in any way towards the cultural district. However, the cultural council is still intact, and the two bodies do work, in conjunction with each other. So it's not to say that would be perfect, but I do agree with Jeff. By the way, this is Jeff Swanberg. He's the chair of the cultural council. But I do agree to his point that it's in one way that the cultural district is the marketing wing for the cultural council. I know that's not entirely accurate, but the cultural council is still in existence, and it still provides a lot of opportunities for inclusion.
Mm-hmm. Just as a background, the cultural council is the town designated. The cultural district is a state designation. In other towns, it could be run by the MBA or another independent group or something. So we're a little unique in the fact that the cultural council also administers the cultural district, and that's the way it has been set up. So just to give you some background information on how that structure works. So right now, the two groups are synonymous. The two groups are run by the same group of people, I should say.
Yeah. And there is a little bit of symbiosis. That's probably not the right word. But when the Economic Development Committee's efforts towards Discover Maynard, with the title being Maynard, it's not the Discover aspect. I'm not trying to diminish that point, but still, this would work in parallel to those other efforts.
I understand. I understand that, and I'm not suggesting that any group or any persons would leave anyone behind. I'm just suggesting the name itself leaves a certain group of people behind. In when I think of arts, I think we have a very specific set of arts. When you think of cultural things, yeah, there's a mix, but there's also certain things that are cultural that aren't necessarily considered art. I'm just thinking along those lines. But
that's fair.
It's a democracy, so if the votes vote, the other way, and we're not actually making the vote, it's just having a discussion, but I would, for me personally, I prefer cultural, but if you guys decided arts is the way you want to go, so be it. We have an acronym. But I just think, you know, that the cultural piece is what we branded it for a reason. We did a lot of branding, and we took a real long time to brand it. It hasn't been branded for very long, and now almost immediately we're changing the name, which it doesn't make sense to me, but then again, what does? So, I don't know if anyone else has any comments. There's no action, there's no vote. It's just a discussion, so.
Yeah, I mean, initially Jeff and I had a conversation about this because we were talking about branding the actual downtown and with the name, and you kind of explained to me your thoughts behind why you're doing this. And I think from an outsider looking in, I agree with you. As people will still look at this as an opportunity to enjoy arts, and arts doesn't always mean just, you know, so there's music, that's part of arts, and, you know, there's obviously the art space is part of arts, and there's just so many aspects when it comes to arts, so.
And it is still through the cultural district
Right.
program. So our cultural district happens to be called the Maynard Arts District.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody else have any comments? All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Draft articles for town meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any that have to be read individually, or can I read them all at once and do them all at once?
One fell swoop.
What did we do last time?
Well, we let the reading commence last time. We did them all at once.
You should do that. You should be consistent with how we did it last
Okay. We'll go right through it then. 10 draft articles for town meeting.
11.
11, okay, 11. Okay, first, motion to accept and approve draft control L, acceptance of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 64G, Section 3A. Motion to accept and approve draft control JJ, acceptance of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 64G, Section 3D, parentheses B. Motion to accept and approve draft control II, acceptance of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 64G, Section 3D, parentheses A. Motion to accept draft control GG, amend bylaw, municipal charges lien in accordance with MGL Chapter 40, Section 21. Motion to accept and approve draft control KK, amend town bylaw, marijuana license limit, Chapter 39, Section 1. Motion to accept draft control MM, amend town bylaw by creating a new bylaw, Chapter 41, minimum property standards of commercial industrial properties. Motion to accept and approve draft control Y, town general fund budget fiscal year 2020. Motion to accept draft control H, community preservation reserve fund appropriation. Motion to accept draft control K, certified free cash appropriation. Motion to accept draft control Z, amend town bylaw by creating a new bylaw, Chapter 42, vacant and abandoned properties. Motion to accept draft control X, amend town bylaw, delete Chapter 21 nuisances, Section 23. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Do we have any discussion about the 11 draft articles?
Yeah, just quickly, this motion here just accepts them. It does not endorse them on behalf of the board. The reason I say that is, and I'm not expressing my opinion on it, but I do think the board needs to discuss, at least one of these has a tax involved in it, which should have some discussion. relative to boarding houses or rooming houses or hotel rooms or something along those lines, just so we understand what it is that's going before town meeting and we have an opportunity to talk about it.
Bill can talk about that if you want to. Bill could talk about that.
Yeah, but I don't know if this is the time to talk about
I
it.
got you.
At some point, we're going to have a discussion on
Yeah.
the articles, once they become articles versus draft controls, but I just don't want, I want to make sure that we're not approving these, and then the next time we talk about them or see them is a town meeting.
No, we'll schedule that.
Hmm.
But we can't schedule it, although you can give your comments now if you would like, but no,
Well,
I'm not asking the board to give.
I saw it, as preparing for tonight's meeting was the first time I saw the draft.
Sure.
So I'm not sure if I'm ready to discuss it
Okay.
in any detail, because I'd like to have an opportunity to speak to some residents about it and see what their thoughts are, and also get the opinions of the board relative to what it's all about. My initial impression is I think I favor it, but I don't know if that's, I don't know what I'm missing. It's news to me.
Stop me if I'm wrong, Greg. I think this is in regards mostly to the hotel.
It is, and we don't have a
No, we don't,
hotel.
'cause,
and-
yeah, so.
Oh, that's correct. These are new taxes. That's correct.
Yeah, and it's just, I just
Just
want to make sure that we have a full understanding before how does that affect from a business perspective? Would a town that has that type of a tax inhibit some commercial development that we might otherwise want to invite?
Sure.
Would there be anything that I guess unintended consequences is what I want to hear, and as I say, my initial impression is, sounds pretty good,
Mhm.
generates revenue, doesn't impact the residents and the taxpayer, so it's probably something that we should consider doing, even though we don't have anything on the boards that would work for us right now.
Right. These are similar comments that echoed by the Economic Development Committee.
Yeah.
When I had them review it. You make good points. I think to the point of when I need the selectmen's recommendations, it'll be soon. Probably the next meeting.
Well, it doesn't need to necessarily be published in the warrant, the
Selectmen's recommendations?
selectmen's recommendations. If it does, then we have to vote on it by the next meeting. If it doesn't, then we don't.
I think that's.
As long as we do it before town meeting, and if somebody on the floor at town meeting says, what's the opinion of the board, we can have of the fact that we took a vote and have a rational explanation as to why we're there.
Absolutely. But yes, that is up to the board.
I do think it helps people in the audience, though, to see who's recommending when they get the printout.
Well, we could,
What was that, Melissa?
Oh, I just said I think it does help people in the audience when they get the printout and it shows written in black and white, like who's supporting it.
Yeah.
And we've typically given a recommendation on every article every year at some point.
I would encourage it, but I'm.
In the
it's not-
warrant if possible, but
Yeah.
when do we have to print the warrant by? When do you need that information by? When does it have to go to print?
It needs to go to print on April 17th, so we have two selectmen's meetings between now and then, April 2nd and April 16th.
Because we're not gonna get them all done in one night. It's, I guess,
True, well then.
so, I mean, so let's.
Half on one meeting and half on the other meeting.
No, I think we have to do that, but I think that, I mean, certainly there are some that, we need to David's point, open up and read and understand what they are, and then there are some that are typical
Oh, yeah.
annual items that we could, they're gonna probably go on a consent agenda item anyways on the floor,
Yeah.
and we could vote them that way as far as acceptance as well, as approval, but
Yeah.
we'll get to that when we get to it, but we typically do give a recommendation for each one before the meeting, but,
So that's what we'll schedule it.
okay,
Or at least for your review.
I have no doubt. So, any other questions about the motion or the articles?
I don't know if you want
Do we
me
have a second?
to,
We had a second
Mr.
already.
Diabakarian seconded it.
Thank you.
I am actually the person who asked Greg to explore changing the bylaw for the marijuana license limit. And I don't know if you want me to talk about the reasoning behind that, or if you want to do that for another meeting. But it's just, I've gotten, basically, without creating a limit at all, there is no limit. So with liquor licenses are determined by the state, depending on our town's population. There is no such law of that for marijuana at this point. So I was looking at it. It just so happens that we have 2 host community agreements that we have signed, but the reasoning behind looking to limit it to 2 is that 20% of, basically, according to the laws, you can limit the marijuana licenses to 20% of your retail liquor licenses without having to go to a ballot vote. But you can still basically get you still go to a town meeting vote for it. So it just so happens that 2 retail marijuana license is 20%, is a little bit more than 20% of our retail liquor licenses. So that's why I wanted to bring it forward. I recognize the fact that we need revenue, and I do know that, but I also know that this is a new venture, and I would really like to proceed in a responsible way. So I just figured it would be good for the town to be able to vote on it.
But more shops doesn't mean more revenue either.
That's true too.
You know?
I think that's something we talked about as well, so
Yeah, I think we all kind of are on that page.
I think we're headed in that direction anyway, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it was a good suggestion.
All right. I just want to let the thoughts behind it, so.
Okay.
And it also, should be noted too, it doesn't preclude us from other marijuana-related businesses that are non-retail, which is also a big revenue source, you know?
Exactly. Yep. I agree.
Mr. Chairman, I have comments on another article.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So for the free cash appropriation.
Which one? Which
we're
one?
on this scenario.
Okay, okay.
Got it.
Yeah, okay,
We're here.
okay.
Yeah, so we're on scenario 4 now for the free cash appropriation. I could go into this in the budget, but because in the budget item on our agenda, but because it is brought up now, I'll explain. So we've had to kind of shift things around again. Again, I don't know what the end bill, so to speak, will be for the efforts at the Green Meadow Elementary School. But due to recent information that I've been given, Finance Director Mike Guzzo and I shifted some funds around, and in an attachment I believe you have, it shows where we've taken from, which is this is all recommendations of the Board of Selectmen, would be to basically take from the $50,000 that I was going to be reducing the tax rate with, and take from General Stabilization Fund to supplement the amount of money I was going to give to the reserve account, reserve fund, to allow for the school committee and school department to apply for a reserve fund transfer, or whatever their efforts may be.
Do we approve each transfer out of that fund, or does that?
No, the finance committee does.
Finance
So
committee.
once it goes from here, it goes to the finance committee?
So
So we lose control?
you are
That's
approving
true.
the budget
So
appropriation.
we lose control of those decisions if they
of how
go?
it's spent from the reserve fund?
Yeah.
Well, no, we wouldn't have control over where it's spent, but the additional funds that go to the reserve fund are additional revenue or additional money that the Board of Selectmen loses authority over. Because once we give it to the Finance Committee within their purview of the reserve fund transfers, we have no control over how they spend that money.
Right, they apply for it directly, and you, yes. Is that correct, Finance Director Mike Guzzo?
Yes. Well, let's put it this way, it's 90% true. We will have, it is a part of it,
Did you say 90% true?
We did.
yes.
What's the 10%?
10% wiggle room.
Wait, I want to know what the 10% is. I don't care about the 90, but I
He's
guess.
the numbers guy.
No, I did not invite this
The
seat at the
reason
table.
why it's being done the way it is,
Mike, the question is, so when we make this transfer, if we make this transfer at town meeting of $600,000 into reserve fund, not that I have any lack of faith in the FinCom, but that decision of where that money goes then becomes the FinCom.
That's my understanding. Is that correct, Mike?
Yes.
Then what's that 10%?
Yeah.
is what happens if it is, who can,
If they don't
eventually how we
spend, if
do.
they don't spend it,
If they don't, well,
Goes a free
that
cash.
has to be discussed
Right.
as to what the mechanism is, and that's the 10% I'm talking about.
Oh.
That has not been finalized yet, and we'll be talking.
So, if somebody or a municipality was of a mind to wish to maintain control over a specific amount of money, could they establish a fund for a specific reason which they would control, other than the reserve fund? 'Cause I kind of like the idea of us having a say in what we do with our money too.
So I would caution the board, that is, I know you know what I'm gonna say this, you know,
I don't have a problem with the fight,
okay.
but I am sitting here and you're telling, we're gonna vote to take however many $100,000
And we lose
and
control.
put them in a bucket, and then we don't ever see it
don't know
again
how
or
to
have
spend-
anything to do
no,
with
we're
it.
gonna spend.
Although you did say originally, Mr. Chairman, that you have you're legally handcuffed, so to speak, as to the expenses of the school committee. And this is a school building, and thus it's the obligation of the school committee as to how they fix it. So if you have any sort of influence over decision making.
You're right, but I'm only legally handcuffed when I give them the money. Not until I give them the money.
Yeah,
I don't have any control over my 18-year-old kid when he was 18, once he left the house. But until I gave him the 20, it was still my 20, and I had control.
I agree. You do not have to approve my recommendation to the board to what to submit to. Like, this is my recommendation for the free cash appropriation to be submitted to town meeting. You can move these numbers around all you want.
I think my bigger concern is the amount of money that's now leaving the control of the elected officials. You know,
Although the school board is elected.
no, but the finance committee is not. And the finance committee is the one who will have the final say on where the reserve fund money goes.
In this strategy.
In this strategy, correct. So, and it has nothing to do with my confidence, lack of confidence, or whatever, confidence in the finance committee, but the residents have the right to elect and have an influence over the people who are making the decisions with $600,000 of their tax money. So I was a little bit more comfortable when you were, I think the last time I heard the number, it was like 200,000. That was before we knew some of the other impacts. I realize that there is a rationale, there's a means, there's a reason for it, because it will expedite the process when the time comes to need to spend the money, if I'm correct, because there won't be a need to go to any town meeting allocation.
That's correct.
So it expedites getting it there, but $600,000 is a hell of a lot of money for, you know, I think the residents deserve to have their elected officials be the ones that are spending that kind of money, and allocating and making recommendations on that kind of money, rather than appointed official, people appointed by the moderator.
That's fair, although the moderator is elected and the school committee
Yes.
is elected, so you do have.
But the school committee's not really involved in this,
Right,
other than the
exactly.
fact that
They
they'll
submit
be
the
the ones
application.
coming to them looking for the money. Whereas, you know, the school committee will say, okay, we're ready to spend the money to finalize the repairs on the school.
So in their application, they should be submitting a bill, so to speak. Like
Yes.
And in they've come to that bill through an authorization from the school committee.
Mhm.
So if the school committee says, we want to do work X, Y, and Z, or whatever the building project may be, they've authorized that spending, so to speak, and so there's a bill as a result, and then that gets conveyed through the reserve fund transfer. So I'm only playing devil's advocate.
No, I understand. I'm
So-
not arguing back and forth.
Yeah.
I'm just expressing my concern over, because when I really look at this, I recognize that $600,000, we typically would give, what was it, $250,000 would go into the reserve fund in a regular year. So we're giving $400 and some odd thousand dollars, or $350,000, that in reality is directed, I mean, the real reason it's going there is because of some issues with the school.
So I think.
And then you
David-
add to that the $100,000 on the next line item that we've got for school and municipal building and roof repair maintenance. You've now got $450,000, $500,000 close to, going specifically that really the intent is to add to the school's needs for the building. And I'm not arguing that the need is not there. My issue is with who controls when that money gets spent, how that money gets spent, and that we have, as residents and as public officials, have oversight, direct oversight into where that money is being.
So to David's
spent.
point, is there any controllables you could put in place?
Yes.
Okay.
Good. Can I clarify a couple of things?
Yeah, sure.
So, this $600,000 is to supplement what we've already budgeted for, and you've already
Got it.
were accepted. So it's in addition to the $250,000.
Oh, it's in it, so we
Yeah.
would now be
Correct.
giving them $850,000?
No, we're giving the reserve
No, no,
fund,
reserve.
we're giving the reserve fund
$50 now, so I can use
So I
$850,000.
want to be able to keep that $250,000 for the normal sort of like business that we always do.
But,
every year.
no, but my point is the
Yeah.
finance committee would now have authority over $850,000.
Exactly,
Yes.
yes.
But a lot of that money has already needs to be spent on the schools. So it's not like they're going willy-nilly to go,
And I'm not suggesting,
something.
that's not I'm not worried about the personalities on the finance committee going willy-nilly.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about the control over the taxpayers' money being in the authority of their elected officials, not in the authority of appointed officials. That's really my issue.
I mean, that's,
charter thing?
that's how the system's set up. I
No, the
don't-
250, I've never had a problem with. I was a member of the finance
Yeah.
committee, and I certainly didn't have
Yeah.
a problem with 250 at the time. It was actually $300,000
Yeah.
when I was a member of the finance committee. And that is to, for those in the audience and watching at TV, that is to expend monies in the case of unexpected emergencies that come up. And it's typically money that's shifted. Most of the time, all of that's done towards the end of the fiscal year when we have to move money over from one place to another. And, oh, the police department fell short because they had an extra parade or something that they didn't expect. But this is just so much money that, in the grand scheme of things, we've got a $40 million budget. In effect, we're giving 1/40th of our budget to unelected officials to decide how to spend it.
That's one perspective, and I don't disagree with that perspective.
Well,
The alternative to this method would be to
1/400th, I guess.
keep it
No,
in a
1/40th.
stabilization account, but you would have to go to town meeting to spend that. So it's,
And the problem with that is that the bills are being accrued in this fiscal year.
Yeah,
And we need to pay them this fiscal year.
That's right.
Well, and it wouldn't just be like them handing out money, like the school committee has to come and say, hey, we have this bill, we need X amount of dollars released.
right, and the finance
So-
committee does.
I mean,
yeah,
they're pretty
they will
tight-handed
deny
with
you if
money,
They don't like what they
yeah.
hear, believe me.
But there's nobody questioning, like, the finance committee's intent or what the finance committee is gonna do. I mean, there's no question that it's not just gonna be a pass-through of paper through the finance committee we have in place today. I don't have any problem believing that they're gonna answer some questions before they sign the checks,
Yeah.
so to speak. But to the point that David and I are both making, we ought to have some level of responsibility to those dollars, to the people who were sitting in the room and the people who were in town. And, went back to my comments I made at the end of the meeting last time. I haven't seen anything that suggests what the financial impacts are. No one wants to come in here and talk to the five of us about it. So, yeah, you want me to give you $600,000 towards an issue, but the person who has the issue in their back pocket doesn't want to come and talk to us about it? Doesn't want to sit in those chairs and have a discussion with the five of us about what's going to happen in the future? I don't think it's appropriate.
It's actually, and I'm not trying to pile on here, but it's actually $700,000 because the next line item is school and municipal building roofing
100,000,
repair
yeah.
maintenance.
Yeah, but I
So
would-
you've got $700,000 that are, from what I'm hearing,
Plus
is
250.
going with the intent of being spent on school
No, that's-
issues.
And town. So I'm keeping that, because we always have like general, I got buckets in the hallway out front. Like, I always have roof stuff I gotta fix. And so.
Okay, so that says school and municipal, fair enough,
Yeah, yeah,
fair
yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask a question about the snow and ice deficit?
Well, can I?
Because the reason is
Snow and
because
ice.
I'm looking at the numbers, and I'm wondering,
Yeah.
as of right now,
I don't like what you're about to do.
Yeah.
I'm not going to.
Seriously.
I know you're getting
But
at.
does that number, can that number change before the warrant? Like, so can that number change before April?
We have a storm
I think
next
it
year.
did last year.
Okay, that's all I'm gonna say.
We're in the process of doing that, trying to get a number.
We have,
Yeah.
we have one meeting, I don't like to say two, but we have at least one meeting
Right.
where I could come back to, and then, so that's what I'll do. If the board, as I'm getting right now, does not feel comfortable with approving this motion for this particular article, they don't have to, so.
Again, all we're doing tonight is accepting the article, so.
That's fair, but I don't even want to have you to do that. And the finance committee has requested the school committee's presence at their next meeting on March 25th. So that could be very revealing, so to speak. Like you could learn a lot, and that could either sway you one way or the other as to how you'd like this to go. But so we can postpone this particular article, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
But to David's point, do they have an idea what the cost is yet or not?
Yes.
With who's that? The school committee or the finance committee?
Oh, they do?
The
Yeah,
school committee.
School committee.
So I can't speak for the school committee, Mike. I don't interact directly with them, but I do interact with the school department, this administration. And based on the information I've gotten from them, which is not like a final bill, but the information I'm getting as to the work being done, mostly because my two gentlemen downstairs, DPW Director Aaron McClesko and Facilities Manager Tim Goulding, are the ones implementing that work. I know that the costs are rising, and it needs to be addressed somehow. $600,000 is what Mike and I came up with as we're trying to shift money around to figure out how to, because when the bill comes, you want me to give an answer.
And on top of that, there's still the insurance money that's gonna come too, right?
That's true.
Well, that would
So
cut, that would cover
also
part
on
of it.
top of this.
I thought the insurance money
So-
was pretty much set with. what-
185?
The 180,000.
The
185?
specifically the abatement aspect.
Right.
That's why this could be known as like the remediation, whatever, like, so beyond the direct abatement costs, this is for whatever reconstruction they want to do.
So I did go to the school committee meeting on Thursday, and the number that they gave, the estimates so far that they had was $740,000.
Inclusive
But
of-
that does not include the 180.
Outside of the insurance money, or?
That does not include so take 180 off of 740.
Yeah.
And they're not, I don't think they're looking for the entire amount from us. They are, or from this pot of money. They are looking at other pots of money as well. But that's, so that's the number that they had as of Thursday of last week.
And I think to Greg's point, I think on the 25th, there's gonna be a lot revealed. Hopefully, we get some clarification from that.
Finish it.
No, but also I asked Mike earlier if there is a way to put any controllables in place.
Yeah, I mean, part of the concern is you don't want to give them 600,000 and it only costs 550 and now you got 50,000. I would have a hard time even with that. Because, now you're giving them, how they're going to spend the money and stuff like that. To me.
But to be fair, and here I am, I'm taking the other side, the money that we give when we transfer the reserve fund over, just to be clear, would go to the finance committee.
Goes to the finance committee.
Not to the school committee.
Not to the school.
So it's not, we're not giving the school
No, we're
committee
not.
six-
So if it
but
ends up
the finance
being-
committee has the authority to give 600,000.
It could, but I would be
And that's-
very concerned if they did.
And then,
I would, because,
well,
I
I think
mean,
everybody would, but
We don't operate that on this side. When you look at a reserve fund,
I agree.
you basically, when I give them a reserve fund and I say it's 30,000, I mean, recently they had some concerns about some reserve funds. I mean,
I just think this.
we don't, if I ask for more, they, it's just-
My feeling is $600,000 is way too much money to be given away from elected officials.
But I mean, we should wait until the Monday meeting.
Yeah,
and see it.
let's pull this off for
I was
now.
gonna say that.
Put this back for the second, and based on what happens on the 25th, we'll, see how that,
Can we approve the other articles with the exception of
yeah, well,
K?
yeah. So I'm gonna, yeah.
Did you have a comment?
I just want to ask a simple, quick question to Greg.
Well, no, you have to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Chairman, can I
Sure.
ask Greg a question?
You can ask a question.
Just question, if this goes to, as it is set now, if it goes to the warrant and it's not approved, where does that 700,000 come from for them to pay for what they've done?
So that's a great question.
Then you'll have a problem, because now we don't have the money, and we would have to apply to the state for deficit spending.
Right.
And
Now,
then
I
it's
would-
totally out of control of everybody.
I would shift it back to the capital stabilization. And then it would have to go back to town meeting to withdraw from that account. So, that's a viable option. But it does require a town meeting, and so as the bills accumulate, and then there's a certain deadline to pay those bills, you know.
And that's obviously the other side of the argument.
Town meeting is not free either. I mean, there's a cost, whether it be the actual, the
that
monetary cost, but also like the political cost, and like, it's not easy.
Because free cash is zero beginning July 1st.
No, I
So what that
understand that. I'm
means,
just saying.
you don't have that money available.
Me, myself,
Yeah,
I have a kid and I want the school to be fixed,
yeah.
but that's a lot of money for something that wasn't the people of the town's problem. We didn't, you know what I mean? The school should have some recourse there. Maybe budget gets cut on them, on their end, you know? Money comes from their budget.
And I think to your point, I think on Monday night, they're gonna have that discussion. I have a feeling that the question's gonna be asked. What are you doing to fix this?
The town doesn't want it. There's a lot of parents, yes, but there's a lot of elderly here too, and that's a lot of money that we're moving from stable to free cash to fix a problem that some people say, their kids didn't go to school there, why do they, you know? You have to convince a bunch of people. This is a hot topic, not just for parents. A lot of elderly are talking about it. In church, they talk about it all the time. About the money. It's all about the money, and that's what, I'm just worried. I'm just asking what would happen.
You cannot end
go to
up in a
deficit
deficit. Then everything comes to a screeching halt, literally.
But to your comment, and in some cases, unfortunately, you know, the town, like any other business, is, you know, when you have employees that do certain things, it falls to the businesses, and that falls to the town. If there are employees of the town that have made certain decisions, we as a town, we're stuck with it. It's nothing that, you can't really.
No, I understand what you're saying.
There's no one person who can.
The school's separate.
Yeah, well.
Heard many times.
The separation.
The school runs their own thing.
Yeah.
The town can't run it. Example, the building. The building is on our tax line as Maynard.
That's right.
But you can't say to them, tomorrow you're gonna put a new roof on, this is how much you're gonna use your budget.
Correct.
That's them. They don't wanna put anything. They wanna watch the roof fall in, they're gonna let the world.
That's why they're elected.
The largest problem with that is that, you know, we're responsible to give them the money, but we don't have any say over once it's gone. So that's kind of where David and I are talking is, you know, we want it to not be gone that quickly, but we'll figure it out. We'll have to talk about it, but.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'd like to amend the motion on the floor, and I'd like to delete motion to accept draft control K, certified free cash appropriation from the motion. Second.
Did we need a second? Sorry.
Okay, okay. All right, so, leaving that, there's the other 10. Anybody have any questions about the other 10?
Nope.
All those in favor of acceptance? Thank you very much.
Good Lord.
All right. Okay. Oh, look at that. FY 2020 budget.
We're flying.
It's moving right along. Okay,
Okay,
great.
so I'll just skip that first part then.
Changes to the balance sheet.
So, snow and ice.
Yeah.
Yay.
St. John's Point. You can see where we are now, as of the 15th, so last week. We had spent $293,217 on our snow and ice efforts. And so that's where we are. I mean, we're not the end of the season, so I'm hesitant to say that's where we'll be.
It beats 2015.
Spring starts tomorrow.
Try not to talk about it too much.
Spring starts tomorrow and Hope Springs
Yeah.
eternal, right?
I saw crocuses come up, so it's all.
And the Red Sox are starting in just a few days, so, you know.
So that's fair. And now, if we don't spend the money, it goes back to free cash, and then
Right.
supplement whatever efforts we may need, because we were pretty fat with free cash this year, $2.1 million. That is probably going to be unprecedented.
Right.
So so in other words, it's good if we don't spend it, we'll be able to have that money put next year.
Okay.
And that's the only updates that I had to the budget, Mr. Chairman. Again, I'm very curious to see what the Finance Committee will say when they meet the school board.
Okay.
But those are kind of the outstanding costs.
Well, that's great. I appreciate it.
Excuse me.
All right, now we're on to lip time. Everybody's favorite subject.
No.
Oh,
Oh, you missed the health benefits?
Oh, health benefits proposal, I'm sorry.
Oh, the motion, that's right, on the budget. On the A?
No,
Or
no, no.
Oh, the health,
B.
the health
B,
renewal, yeah,
on
yeah,
B.
okay, I'm sorry, that's right.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can explain that, Mr. Chairman, if you would like. I've provided this material before because this is what we used to build the budget. The significant savings that we got from our health benefits. I didn't realize that I needed a vote from the board. So that's all I'm asking for.
Okay, I did not sign, we have to sign that, I did not sign them. I did not sign
Do you
those.
have the purple?
There was one that had
I
like
think I
a,
gave it back to you, but I did not sign the MIA box.
That's what
Signature for acceptance of rates?
Yeah, that's what I need.
yeah.
All right, so, and I make a motion that we move to accept and approve the MIA Health Trust Renewal Proposal dated July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2020.
Second?
Okay, thank you. All right, and this is,
Let's see what the number is.
This one. And two.
Pre-sign the executive session.
thank you. Okay, so, does anybody have any questions for Greg on the
It's impressive.
MIA?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say it's good news. What I would ask is, as we start to prepare for our next round of collective bargaining, that we remember that our health insurance program is pretty, what's the word I want, generous. And there are probably savings that are not, when you look at, the health insurance program that we have versus the health insurance program that most private employees have, it's extremely generous. And I know that that's the case for all public employees for various reasons. But I do think that there's an opportunity there that we should not let necessarily miss. And maybe we won't be able to find any plan changes or whatever, but I think there's probably even more savings that we can make by a modest increase in deductibles. You name it, those types of things. I'm not looking to harm people, but there comes a point where we might be able to find some additional savings.
I look forward to working with the towns, as alluded to in this comment here, Insurance Advisory Committee, which is, basically the cooperation of all the different employee representations. Just to your point, like, how are we doing with their health insurance? Is everyone comfortable with it? Where can we adjust to kind of help each other out? I mean, yeah, we'll start those conversations soon.
Okay. All right, so all those in favor of accepting the rates? Thank you. Okay, now we are to the lip.
Well, we haven't heard anything back, have we?
We didn't submit anything, I
Oh,
don't
we
think,
didn't?
right?
I thought we did.
Well,
Well-
so Attorney Costa may have submitted it to Attorney Levine.
Yeah,
But
we're waiting, right?
Yeah.
so my understanding is, from the last meeting in this body, it was to kind of, if there was any further developments as to what you
No
would
pun
like
intended.
to be provided to Attorney Costa to be given to Attorney Levine, and you can kind of continue to develop your.
I think we're just gonna present what we presented last time, right?
Very well.
And we're gonna wait back from word for them?
So
Was Adam gonna give us like a draft before he sent it to Attorney Levine, or we just kind of like gave him? I'm just confused.
So my understanding is that we were, particularly because Selectman Gavin was not present last week, so we want to give the opportunity one more time if this board had any changes to the guidance given to Attorney Costa.
Okay. But he hasn't like produced a document of like,
No, I saw, he and I went over the notes to make sure that his notes match my notes.
Right.
And they do.
Okay. I think that sounds good.
Okay.
I mean, I don't have anything to add personally. I don't know if anyone else does.
Nope.
I'm disappointed that I missed, there's two things I'm disappointed about, that I missed the damp meeting, and then secondly, that it wasn't videotaped, because I didn't have the chance to watch it, to see what comments were made. But I think one of the things, and I don't know if this discussion has been held in the depth to which it is, what I tried to do in my comments when I first sent them out to Armand, and then I understand that Armand brought them to the attention of the full board at the last meeting. But what I tried to do was to identify certain things that Maynard sees as impactful to ourselves, and things that are going to, as a result of that impact, impact our community in some way. So the numbers that I might have thrown out here may not be, they may be too low, they may be too high, they may be something. But I think what I was trying to generate is a discussion about what things are there that we are concerned about relative to this entire project. And when you identify those things, how much is each one of those things worth to us? That's sort of the approach that I'm trying to take. I didn't get to express this opinion because I wasn't here, but I'm disappointed at their response to our request relative to building height. And from what I heard, I think it was Melissa that made a tremendous point when I heard about it second or third hand, relative to when they said, oh, as a result of lowering the height, you're losing 16 units, so therefore the amount that we're going to be taking off, we're going to be expecting you to take off of your mitigation request is X number. And I don't know, Melissa, you may remember what the number per unit was.
Oh, it was ridiculous.
But it's like $35,000 per unit.
I think it was 43.
Or $43,000 per unit. So therefore, our ask should be, based on their own information, if they want 180 units in Maynard, they've established through their...
having 64 units in Maynard.
I don't mean to interrupt you. What we did was, with the number that we had, Melissa, we took the number, we took the mitigation they took off the table and just divided it by 10. And it was 427. So it was like 40, it was 43,000 a unit, but that's how we got to that number. Which is, what the math said was, they took, I think it was $485,000 they took off the mitigation table and attributed that to 10-unit difference, and that's where the, that's where the number came from.
And so you figure that they want 80 units in Maynard.
They're actually only getting 64 units in Maynard.
64 units in Maynard.
Mm-hmm.
So
61.
What was the number again?
61.
48.5.
It's down to 61. It's down to 61.
Okay.
61.
Can't keep.
That's $3 million.
Right.
And then when you compare that to what they offered us, which was $75,000, whatever the number was, and that might be way off, but
Nope,
That's what it was.
75. So they tell us that for them, it's worth $3 million. For us, it's worth $75,000. You know what? We're smarter than that. And Maynard's not going to be taken advantage of. This isn't your father's Maynard. So they can come back to us with a reasonable offer, a reasonable request, talk to us about some of the requests that we've made rather than just ignoring us and flipping their hand at us. And let's have a real discussion rather than just having them play games.
Well, I don't feel like they've ignored us because I feel like we need to respond back with our counter.
But Justine, when we say we'd like 35 feet and they say, well, we'll give you one story off, that's no counter.
Well,
that's
it kind of is. They took a story off.
You know what our response
So
is? No, thank you.
It's now
Come back again.
It's a 3-story building as opposed to a 4-story building.
On one building.
Right.
So David,
which is the
our-
street side building.
Our
which was the
response
most
should be, no,
important
thank
building.
you, try again.
well, David, we
So-
talked about that because that was my suggestion too at the last meeting. And I think after going around in circles as a board, we had decided that it was an opportunity to ask for everything we wanted since they opened the door with such a, disappointing and insulting offer. And we thought that as a board that was more productive for Maynard than just saying like, you come back to us. And I know you're disappointed you weren't here, and I would be too, but I think Armin did a really good job making your voice heard based on your email, and we actually used your email and the amounts as the basis for what we talked about, and then we added to it even more based on Greg's input and everyone else on the board.
Yeah, and I'm not at all critical of the board relative to how it came out. I very much appreciate that Armin was willing to bring that up, and
I think you'd be very proud if you could have seen a video.
Yes.
Like-
Too bad it wasn't taped, right?
Yeah. It's
I
one
can
of our
listen to
most
the tape.
productive meetings on
I
this.
have the tape.
We want to take all day to listen to the tape. But the other thing too is one of the issues too was, just, from talking over the course of however long it's been, it's almost 2 years now, right? 18 months, 2 years, since we started talking with those guys. And it's, one of the concerns is gonna be, he's gonna put the 10 units somewhere else.
Oh, yeah.
The 10 units aren't coming out of
Oh,
the
yeah.
project.
Yeah.
So,
so the impact becomes the same.
The 10 units aren't coming out of the project, number one, and number two, we're dealing with a community, a border community that has no problem letting someone go as high as they want on another part of the project to suit their needs, because that'll just increase their tax revenue and everything else. And it's just, does that affect Maynard? No, but it's just,
Well, the height of the building, there becomes some issues, because they're restricted relative to Acton has, the whole stretch of land along Acton is along the water. So they are not going to, regardless of what they do, they're not going to get a waiver from the state on DEP requirements. It's not going to happen. So then they've got limited space in which to build. So the only place they can build is up. The higher they get, they're going to have to start, first off, they're going to have fire apparatus issues, because Acton probably doesn't have equipment that will reach 6 stories high. Beyond that, they need to have the frontage of the property in order to get a truck in there to begin with, to be able to do it. And most importantly, once you begin to get to a certain height of a building, they got to go to steel. And if they got to go to a steel building, the prices escalate enormously. And
they might be
and
pretty close to
it's-
that point
it's-
now. They might be pretty close to that point now with the buildings in the back.
It may be.
As they, but that's neither here nor there for us. I'm just saying it's.
Correct, but
I'm getting to, if we're talking about the building heights as a visual issue, right, more than anything else, it's a gateway point to town. It's
Yep.
all those things that we talk about over.
Yep.
If we're talking about worrying about that, and, if you've got a 7-story, 8-story building behind it, it's not gonna matter what the building in the front looks like, because you're still gonna see the back. And my
true.
point was, it's in Acton anyway, right? But it's not in Acton, it's in Maynard.
Yeah.
Because no one's gonna ever recognize this project, no matter what it becomes, as being in Acton, because everyone driving down 62 goes, well, look at that place in Maynard. No one's gonna recognize it as being Acton, because you know where our town line sign is, right? Right out in front of it, at
Back-
the beginning of the property.
back down.
Because the
at,
property goes like this. So when you go by the sign that says, welcome to Maynard, everything's gonna be beyond that, that's gonna be built. So I'm just saying, if we're talking about building heights for, density issues, yeah, I get it. But if we're talking just for the height issues, they're gonna put that height issue and they're gonna use it, they're gonna go up and up and up, because he's not losing units. That much I can tell you. Those guys are not gonna give away the units. They're gonna move them somewhere else, inside that property, and put them somewhere else. But that's a whole different subject. I think to the point that you made earlier, and to Melissa's point, every one of us is, it's an understatement to say we were all disappointed with the offer that they gave us, and that kind of, nobody objected to suggesting that they come up with a few $1 million for us in mitigation funds. We'll just see where it goes.
It might go nowhere. They might
It
just walk away.
might go right to DHS,
Right.
but so be it.
And then
We've done what we've done.
And then we
And
tell
we-
them that we are
We fight that fight.
compliant.
We fight that fight.
Well, there's been some news, I don't know if you've seen the news, that there are several towns, Arlington among them, that has come out with, I should say Lexington among them, but I think Arlington also has come out with they're fighting the 1.5% issue.
It's on the line. It's on the Lexington-Arlington line. It's gonna straddle both communities.
And they did not hesitate to push that fight. And it's not, I think in their instance, it's not just as it is for me. It's not an issue of 40B or affordable housing, which I totally support and believe that we need more of, but not at the expense of our community. And, we can do it in a reasonable fashion, just as with any development. You can develop reasonably, not unreasonably.
But it's a balancing act too, because we're a little different than Lexington or Arlington in that we don't have the disposable income to go to that fight, unless we're forced to, because that in itself is going to cost the town a lot of money, and there's a chance we're not going to prevail according to legal counsel. We don't know how it's going to turn up, so we just can't gamble that money. That's how I feel on it. So we need to take the financially conservative route to get this town the most money possible with spending as little as possible in the process.
Well, the point is to make it clear to them that we're not going to hesitate. I mean, they're using we're going to go unfriendly as a threat. Well, why can't we use the fact that we're going to declare our safe harbor as a threat back? They're going to have to fight the fight.
I don't think it's a threat. I think it's a matter of fact.
I think the issue is,
if it's fact, they would have done it already.
one of the issues is it's the same reason that the people at 129 Parker use that argument against the town, because they, for the same reason. It's a game. But it's a game.
But who won that argument with 129 Parker Street? Maynard did, because they knew we had the information, they knew we had it, they backed down.
I don't know about that, but.
They didn't file an unfriendly 40B.
Their issue, but the problem that they ended up having was the retail component. There is no 40B for retail. That was part of the problem with them. So it's a whole different ball of wax, but it doesn't matter. We'll wait and see what happens with Joel.
I was just gonna say that. I think we did a
moving
good
right along,
job.
beating this horse to death.
Yeah, we did a good job from our end, I think, going back.
Unless anybody has any new information. You have new information?
No, never mind.
Any more articles you want to throw at the rest of us?
Yes.
You want to do?
By the way, no.
Turn the arrow around.
I commend Justine on that article, because I think
cannabis one?
yes, I think it's appropriate.
Absolutely.
So.
I think I thought we all agreed on that. We had talked about it.
Town administrator's report.
Right?
She got the bad arrow out tonight. So look at it, right there.
Yes, sir, sorry.
The parking ban has been lifted
Yes, I've noticed.
as of March 15th.
It's a sign of spring.
My relative, not my relatives, my neighbors, March 16th. I think there's two guys who go out at midnight and put their cars on the street.
1201? Yeah.
1201, they're on the street, absolutely, but.
Then we can't have another snowstorm, so that number's fine.
Yeah, it's good.
You just said that out loud.
Actually,
You did say it out loud.
last March, we had a snowstorm every weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, moving on.
But
Only a couple things to highlight, Mr. Chairman.
yes, sir.
I am actively looking for candidates to be appointed by the Selectmen to the Capital Planning Committee.
And I'll submit a name to
great.
you. I think we spoke about that gentleman.
Yeah, I'll reach out to anybody. Yeah, please.
I'll submit that name.
And I think it's an exciting opportunity for residents to get involved in the town, and it's not the most demanding work, but it does require a certain amount of analysis and just to be good custodians of the money. So it's great.
Finding any new people?
That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that it's because we've got, not that there's anything wrong with the people who volunteer for everything now,
Yeah.
but they're all pretty spread out thin.
That's correct.
And it's, it might be nice to get new eyes
Yeah.
as well, but that's not being critical of anyone or anything. It's
No,
just,
I agree.
we keep going to the same well, and I think those guys, sooner or later, we're gonna burn out the people that
Yeah.
Well,
have been kind enough
the
to
name I'm gonna
volunteer.
share with him is a new name, so that.
And I'll cold call people too. So,
Fabulous.
I'll just open the phone book and see who's there.
We'll just give you names.
No, that's what I just need names, and even if it's just to say, just so that person and I can just talk about it, that's, and then maybe they know someone that might be a good fit. I'm totally down for it. I'm just seeing if there's anything else I want to highlight for the rest of the report. Again, I encourage the public to look at the town administrator's report. We put it all obviously in the Selectmen's agenda packet, but we do try to get it onto the town's website as well, potentially to start translating it. And It's great, it has a lot of information, so I encourage you to look at it. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
That's it? Okay. So, Chairman's report. So there's two things that, two things. One is, as we know, that the school committee and FinCom are gonna meet on the 25th. The FinCom has invited the school committee. I think everybody's seen the list of questions that Ken Estabrook has put out that he's gonna, he's presented. I think he's already presented it to the school committee, so that'll speed the process. But we're not gonna attend as a group, but we're all welcome to attend as individuals. One of the reasons we didn't attend officially as a group was because if we attended as a group, there would be 17 people with a seat at the table, and it would have been a little bit, Greg and I talked about it, we thought it would be a little bit crazy to have 17 people sitting at the table with a microphone in front of them. So we'll get the information back from that meeting, and then I guess at our next meeting, we've invited we've invited the school committee. As of this date, Craig and I have gone back and forth with the leaders of the school committee and have not found that anybody's interested in coming to see us on April 2nd, which is another reason why I'm happy to sit on that $600,000, but that's just me. But everybody's welcome to go to that meeting on the 25th, and we can't chit-chat if we're there. We can sit and say hello, but we can't have conversations, deliberate, or any of those things if we are there at the same time, because we have not posted it, and we're probably not going to post it. I don't know if anybody feels differently, but that's kind of where we ended up in the discussion. And then the only other thing that I had was also, there's been a lot of conversation, and I've had several emails, some nice conversations back and forth with parents and people from the Green Meadow community with concerns about mold. And I know more about mold today than I ever thought I'd know about mold. But the mold issues and the asbestos issues are two entirely different issues. And there's a lot of parents who really don't care about asbestos, they care about mold, and vice versa. And one of the things that keeps coming up in the discussions about mold is that the Maynard Board of Health has not taken a stance or got involved in that whole process at this point. And there's several reasons why. Chief among them, from the information that Greg and I have seen, is that the state entities charged with those responsibilities have suggested that they don't do an air test, correct? It's an air test.
Public health?
Yeah.
I don't want to speak to specifics, I'm not.
Huh?
I don't want to, I'm not sure, Mr. Chairman, I don't want to say what they do or don't do, but.
Anyways, the information is suggested that I've read, I've suggested, I read it, but the information that they've put out is suggest that there's no measurable standards for it, and for any number of reasons. Both the Maynard Board of Health agent and the person covering for her have both said that they don't have an intention to test based on the information from the federal government.
They defer to the Department of Health.
That's right, yeah, they defer elsewhere. But anyway, so Greg has we've kind of kicked it about a little bit, and if you guys are interested, we could ask the Board of Health to come to one of our meetings and kind of discuss those things with them, or we could leave it where it is and not have them come in and discuss those things with us. It's up to the five of us. But does anybody have a burning desire to not have them, or a burning desire to have them, or do you care either way?
I feel pretty neutral.
A lot of help?
I feel like if the state level is already involved, I feel like that supersedes the local level to begin with. So I feel like having the local level come in is kind of, it feels, I don't know how it feels. I was gonna say repetitive, but not, because they haven't come in, but.
Redundant, but I do think that I would, as I encourage any member of the public, attend these public meetings, whether they Board of Health or whatever, and ask these questions directly. I think, and then just hear it from them. So whether the board would like the Board of Health representative to give a statement to you directly, regardless, they meet regularly. So any member of the public could just go ask them.
Yeah, I don't necessarily need maybe that we could just ask Kelly? Two Kellys, right? Our Kelly, two Kellys.
Kelly too.
There's two Kellys. So maybe we could just ask Kelly maybe we could just ask Kelly to provide us with something for the packet for next time, a written statement for the packet as to why you wouldn't or
I'll
why you
ask
might
her
not?
to ask the chair of the board.
Yeah, you know, so we get that, if sounds like everybody doesn't want them to come and
Okay.
waste an hour with us or so, but whatever. And that's all I had, so, board member reports, Armin?
I had the pleasure of participating in the March for Meals, and it was a very, I should say, satisfying and eye-opening experience for me. And it's something that the volunteers should be commended for what they do. And anyway, but I really enjoyed that day, and I had a great guide that took me around, and was able to meet nice people. And I think was a nice experience. The other thing that I wanted to share, when we attended the Lieutenant Governor's visit, what opened my eyes about the ClearGov, opportunity that we have, I think, in order for us to utilize it, and Justine and I spoke about that, to utilize that a lot better than what we, and I don't know whether or not all of us are aware of what's available. And I got together with one of the reps from there after the meeting, and he opened my eyes to a lot of opportunities that I think that they're willing to come here and give us a presentation if we're willing to see that. And I think we can see how we could utilize that tool a little bit better for us and for the citizens of the town, you know. Yeah.
No, the finance committee is also interested in that. Some of the
Okay. Oh,
presentation.
they are? Okay. So
So,
anyway.
yeah, absolutely. If the board would like, I can schedule them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
yes, please. Yes, please.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else, sir?
No, that's it.
Melissa?
I do not have anything.
David?
Yeah, unfortunately, I guess it's fortunate, but unfortunately, I will not be able to attend the Monday meeting.
We'll tape it for you.
Well, yeah,
We'll
it's going to be
record it.
taped, so
We'll
it
record
will
it.
be taped, so
We'll
I,
record it. By the way, this room might not be big enough.
This room is
Okay.
not
For that
big
meeting?
enough.
For that meeting, this room might not be big enough, number one, and number two. So if the room isn't big enough, what do? Don't they have to reschedule?
Yes.
Michael, can you coordinate to have someone film downstairs, have it running downstairs?
I can try,
Because there's a camera set up down there that they could.
Okay.
we've done that
Oh,
for,
okay.
we've done that
You
for
could
some
see
big
it.
meetings.
Because I do not think that this room is gonna be big enough.
Why would they just do it at like the Fowler Auditorium or something, knowing
But
the
you
crowd
can't
that
tape
they're
it
gonna
there,
get?
right?
Yeah, we can tape
Oh, you can
there.
tape
You
it
can
in
tape it, you
It just
can't live
can't be
stream.
live.
Can't be live, okay.
So I'll work with the finance committee.
Yeah, I just think,
They're gonna get a massive turnout from.
I was gonna say, how can you gauge how many people are gonna show up
I'm
anyway?
not sure.
I think there's a lot of
Yes,
buzz,
but just
like,
a lot of talk about it.
Oh, okay.
Your instincts are probably correct either way.
You're gonna have everyone that goes to school committee is gonna be there.
Oh,
yeah, it's
okay.
gonna be
There's like
huge.
70 people.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's for
And-
sure
If
then.
you don't, that's without the teachers coming.
So I'll work with the finance committee.
Yeah.
I'll let Kevin.
You're in charge of snacks for the next meeting.
Just, the reason, go ahead, no.
No, I'm just saying, you guys are bringing up about the health, the air quality. There's a meeting there's April 2nd.
Yeah.
She's having it 6:30 before your meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She
that's,
has Green Meadow on there.
that's their regular one, yeah.
That's a regular
Oh,
meeting.
perfect. Yeah.
Usually it conflicts with ours downstairs.
But yeah, they overlap.
The reason I can't make it Monday is the reason that I said that it's fortunate that I can't make it, because my daughter's finalizing her college decisions, and she's going to an accepted students' day, and I gotta be there, so that's
Yeah,
why
that's important.
I'll be
Very
there.
cool.
So anyway,
They want to get the guy writing the checks,
Yeah.
trust me.
anyway, I saw the,
Is that from the stabilization fund?
Yeah.
that $600,000 that we're,
Won't be enough.
thank you for the message this morning. I actually saw Saturday, or maybe it's Sunday, it was Saturday or Sunday, the flag
Yeah.
week, because it was hanging,
Oh, yeah.
part of it was hanging off, and it was really
They
windy.
still left the spotlight on, just so you
And,
know.
yeah, the spotlight's still on, but they were there, and they took care of it, and they got it down. I mean, the flag is precious, and it's gotta be taken care of, and it was,
I flag pole snapped in half.
so I'm glad they addressed it. I saw that it was hanging off, and, so it was good that they took it down. Although they put a big, huge rut in that. They brought the truck back there and the police car. Huh?
The contractor did?
No, it was our guys.
Town did it.
It was our guys, yeah. It's no big deal. No big deal. They went
They're gonna
around,
fix it, they'll fix
they
it.
went around the
They
side.
fix it. They
They'll
just fix
fix it.
themselves.
They went around the side of the track. It was, you know.
Just made more work.
So anyway, speaking of that, is Aaron planning on attending that meeting on?
On Monday, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, because I'd like him to be able to speak up
Oh, yeah.
on some of the comments that have been made about his role, so.
And the fire chief's gonna be there, you said? Or just police?
No, that was for.
No, that was for the, that was for marijuana.
Marijuana, with the, that's the planning
I
board.
got them all mixed up.
I
The
think
chief
that's,
might show up if he thinks it's gonna be out of capacity, he'll kick people out, but.
Oh, see?
yeah, that's it for me.
I have lots of things.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
All right, first I wanted to commend the Maynard High School for putting on the Shakespeare, A Midsummer Night's
that was
Dream,
awesome.
based in the 60s.
It was so funny.
It was very funny, and we have so many talented kids. It was great. It was well attended. It was Shakespeare.
Nice.
But it was a lot of fun, and the kids had a great time with it. So the new theater director they have is very enthusiastic and is actually planning on putting on Godspell in another 6 weeks. So we'll see. They've already done auditions, and they're full speed ahead there. So that's really cool. I'm very excited for that. Quickly about ClearGov. I've been using it for about a year. I love it. I can't wait to see what else it can do. But I'm still learning about it as well. And one thing that I learned the other day is so the school subscribes to it as well. And so all of their information is in there. And what it does is it compares peers, and it compares state averages and things like that. So if you want to see, how our teachers rate as far as pay, or how, whether we have as many paras as other districts, or whether we have as many administrators as other districts. All of that information is in there, and I kind of stumbled on that a couple days ago, and whoa! So I thought that was really an interesting thing. So definitely there's the Maynard side, and then there's a Maynard Public Schools side, which is great. And I think there are a few other towns that their schools also subscribe that same way, so they get more of the information, like a fuller perspective of it. And then the last thing I wanted to do is give a shout out, when sometimes you don't get it, to the highway department, especially right now, because I can guarantee you that there are potholes and everything else that are out there. But this comes from me because I work at a highway department, and I know that this is a horrific time of year for roads and for potholes and things like that. I know they're doing the best they can. I would encourage people who, see something that's really deep or something to absolutely give them a call, but also have patience and know that it will get better. It's just right now with the change of the cold and the hot, and the cold and the hot, and the rain just doesn't help things. So I did want to give a shout out to them, because I know that they're probably working extremely hard right now.
And to your point, they responded very fast when, with the cones and everything, every time there was the potholes created, because right after,
it's hard, yeah.
They did a nice job.
Yeah.
I just
I
want
talked
to
fast.
thank you for your energy and enthusiasm this evening.
Thank you.
Glad I'm sitting next to
Powder
you.
mill thing done?
No.
Project? No? Okay, because they stopped. They're not working anymore.
They haven't been working.
Yeah, I
for a
haven't
couple
done
days.
anything in a little bit.
Oh, okay, they took a
I don't know if
break.
they're done, but they haven't
The
done
road's
anything
not
in a
blocked
little
off
bit.
right now,
They
right?
took a break?
Yeah, because the
road
road's
is
been
not blocked
open.
off.
so-
It's open, yeah, it hasn't been, you haven't,
Yeah, but
no
it's
barricades.
still only temporary
Okay.
paved, but,
I'll look into it.
so I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Wow, that was
Well,
fast.
Yeah.
All those in favor? Don't worry, the Bruins were up 3 after.
Yeah, is it? 3 up?
After 2 periods.
All in favor?
Did we
All
say all?
favor.
All in favor?
Are you going?
Yeah, they're up.